from NAGAP, and I'm joined today with Linda Horace. She's our education chair. And we apologize for being a little bit late. I got caught up because we had originally thought about 2 o'clock for the webinar, so I was off at another part on campus and didn't realize we were starting at 1, so I apologize for that. And we had a few technical hiccups getting in. So, but thank you so much for joining us, and we wanted to try to give you an opportunity to hear some kind of best practices on how to best engage your audience at the NAGAP Annual Conference and how you can really make your session valuable and have some key takeaways that will help our various attendees coming to your sessions. So if you have any questions as you go through, you'll be able to see on the right side of your screen there is a questions panel, so please feel free to ask any questions that you have there. We'd be happy to answer anything that you have either during the session or afterward. So briefly, Linda and I will just introduce ourselves here for a moment, tell you a little bit of information about the presenters, and give you some guidelines and suggestions and tips on how to really make your presentations really impactful. Also talk about some final takeaways and then answer any questions that you have. So Linda, do you just want to briefly tell everybody about yourself real quick?
Sure. My name is Linda Horace, and for 3 years I was on the conference committee, and now I am serving as the chair of NAGAP's Education Committee. I'm also the president of one of NAGAP's chapters, a Jesuit organization of grad admissions professionals, and have in the past worked with the New York chapter as well. For my job, I am the assistant dean for admissions at Fordham University's Graduate School of Education.
Great. And everybody, I'm Marcus Hanscom. As I mentioned, I'm the technology chair for NAGAP, and also I'm the director of graduate operations and marketing at the University of New Haven in Connecticut. So thank you so much for joining us, and again, if you have any questions, let us know as we go throughout. And Linda, can you just confirm that you can see the screen clearly? I just want to make sure everybody can see what we're looking at.
I can see the screen, but I don't see the PowerPoint yet.
You don't see the PowerPoint, okay.
No.
Let me see what's going on. So let's try that. Is that any better for everybody?
I don't see it at all.
All right, so attendees see the PowerPoint, so I don't know what might be happening on your end, Linda. This might be hiding behind another screen, but
hang on.
Anyway, we're on slide 3 right now, so the important information slide. So for those of you, thanks for letting us know that you can see the slides. I apologize for that. So the PowerPoint template that you see here is what we emailed out to you. It should have come from NAGAP. I believe Christy Ross sent it to you. So if you don't have that, please let us know. And what we want to try to do is make sure everybody's under a uniform template with our logo and, of course, representing the conference. And this year our location in New Orleans, so we're excited for that. We've done all the various edits and things for your learning objectives and abstracts. I know you had opportunities to edit that in the pre-sys system, so that deadline has passed. But at this point, you have until March 30th to get your final PowerPoint presentation to us by uploading it on the pre-sys site, and those credentials were emailed to you as well. Wi-Fi is generally not available in the meeting rooms. However, we do have hardwired connections for our presenters. So for those of you who obviously are going to be presenting, if you need internet access, if you're showing a video or something, you do have internet access that will be hardwired to the laptop in the room. If for any reason you have any sorts of updates that you need to make to your presentation, and you have to do them at the last minute, just make sure you bring your final presentation on a flash drive. We'll be able to load that up for you. Just make sure you arrive at the session room that you're assigned at least a few minutes beforehand to make sure that we can get that loaded on there for you. If you're showing any videos that are files themselves, so unless you're going to YouTube and you want to use the internet connection there, if you have any kind of AVI or Windows Media files and things, make sure you bring the raw video file itself. Bring it on your USB drive, and we'll get that set up for you because it's very hard to embed those in the PowerPoint and get them to run correctly. Also, make sure to register for the conference. That is something you have to do soon if you haven't done so already. And we just found out that the conference block for rooms is close to 90% full at this point. So if you haven't made your hotel reservations and you want to be in the main conference hotel, please do that today or tomorrow. Because that room, and we actually have festivals happening in New Orleans both at the beginning and end of our conference, so that it's impacting the room availability for you. So make sure you get all registered for your hotel right away. So Linda, you want to jump in on the theme?
Sure do. Okay, so my part in this webinar today will be to kind of talk with you a little bit about elements of the presentation and also showing you where the work you've done so far is linked to the work that the Education Committee and the Conference Committee have done, and most especially to emphasize that your presentations should have the theme of the conference, GEM defined, woven into them in some way. As you know, as members of NAGAP, and those of you perhaps who are on the call who are not members, we've kind of looked at ourselves for many years as being a group of mostly admissions professionals. However, time and also changes within our university structures have made it so that our jobs are changing as well. And we're not just doing admissions work, but we are doing work where we are involved more now with the whole student life cycle from the time that they are a prospect for us or right up until the time that they are alum, and even in some of our GEM graduate enrollment management offices, our people are becoming more involved in the development end of it as well. So what we're seeing is that graduate schools are shifting in their responsibilities to models that traditionally have been used at the undergraduate level. So because of these changes, NAGAP thought that it was very, very important for us to meet the needs of our constituents, our membership, and kind of redefine ourselves and be able to provide professional development to increase your knowledge and skills in the area of graduate enrollment management. And so hence, with this theme in mind, if there's a way for you to weave this into your presentation in some way. So perhaps an example might be that you are you're working on how you implemented a new CRM. And so indeed, how are you using the CRM, or how could it be used, not just for corresponding with your prospective students, but kind of keeping the lines of communication and creating a connection and a community within your school once your admitted students are enrolled and when you want to make them part of your community as well, your school community or your university community or even your particular program. So we would like to see you kind of weave that in. Okay, next slide, Marcus. And so some elements of a successful presentation are that we would like you to prepare your audience ahead of time. And you're probably sitting there thinking, how am I going to do that? I don't know who's going to show up. We do ask when people are registering for the conference to pick some of the presentations and ed sessions that they think that they want to go to. And this gives us an idea when we're doing, some room assignments and stuff like that in case we have to do last-minute shifts because of large groups that want to go to hear a particular presenter. But you can always email and get a list of the people and their email addresses for those who already signed up for your presentation. I've done this a few times when I've been a presenter, and it kind of gave me an opportunity to send them an email, to invite them to bring other colleagues who might be at the conference with them. And I sent out an article. One time I gave a little homework assignment for things for them to be thinking about. To kind of prepare them, almost like a pre-lesson activity, if you think in educational terms, for your presentation. So that can be something that can be very helpful to you. Another thing that you will do when you are, getting your presentation together is to have a quick introduction about your institution and some information about your organization. You don't want that to be too much, but you want your audience to know, do you represent one program? Do you have a centralized or a decentralized approach in your graduate enrollment management offices? Do you have responsibility for the full cycle, or are you just doing admissions? what is the size of your institution? Where are you located? Sometimes there are geographic implications for the kinds of students that you are recruiting and for your particular programs as well. So just some details like that. Our audience members are very interested in knowing this, but we wouldn't want you to take up too much time to do that because we want you to get to the meat of what it is that you're presenting about. You'll include an overview and an agenda. And we want you to be very, very clear with your content that it has to do with the learning objectives that you identified. Now, if you've made any changes in that since you last did updates and presys, make sure that you include it in your PowerPoint so that people know from the very beginning of your presentation what the learning objectives are. So, because we know how conferences can be, and we've been in those seats where you get in there and it's not what you anticipated. So rather than interrupt a speaker or speakers later on, be very clear in the beginning so that people know whether this is something that they really want to be participating in. And then we also require that you have some kind of takeaway or assignment, some kind of to-do, a very concrete kind of thing that your audience members can do with the new learning that you are giving them. And so for each section of your presentation, as you shift from one subtopic to another, you would want to have a slide that would give examples of how they can use what they've learned. And we'll talk a little bit more in detail about that as we go through this webinar today. Try to engage your audience as well. I know that you might have anywhere from 10 to 110, 120 people in the room. The conference rooms at the hotel are of different sizes, and they are lecture-style seating. So although we encourage you to engage your audience and to have it be a bit interactive, sometimes the room setup isn't really as conducive as you might like for that. But if you need to have people do partner shares or work in triads for a few minutes to discuss something you've said, feel free to have them get up and move about, or if the chairs are movable, move them a little bit, just making sure that it's all set up in lecture-style seating before the next group comes in. At the end of your presentation, include in your slides some sort of a recap or summary. And then, if there's a way for you to provide extra resources, some sort of bibliography or links that you can provide, it's a good idea as people are coming in, have a little basket or something for people to drop off their business cards. I've done that before in my presentation, and then put it together into a spreadsheet and then email people afterwards. And it kind of gives people also a good opportunity, if they're willing to let their email addresses be used with one another, a way for them to connect. So it is a good networking source as well. Okay, next slide, please. And so when you're giving the, I kind of talked about this one already, about the information that you would give about yourself or any other presenters who could be working with you. And this would be just some examples for you here, as you can see on the slide. Maybe what products you're using. You're going to try to give as much information as you can in a very brief amount of time, or if you have it on the slide and it's part of the uploaded presentation, people are going to have that in front of them prior to the conference, and it'll really increase chances for networking as well. Somebody from a small school knows you're from a small school, so they're going to contact you later on. It's those kinds of things. We try to increase the level of engagement and increase opportunities for people to do networking at the conference as well as afterwards. Okay, next slide. And so your learning objectives, you probably spent a good deal of time on this when you were preparing your proposal, but when you are, kind of revamping things maybe a bit for your presentation, make sure that your learning objectives are clear and concise and that they're all actionable. You don't want to have a vague learning objective that people will understand the elements of a good communication plan, but rather that should be worded somewhat more like that people will, you could, and again, each learning objective needs to start with an action verb. Create clear messages about your brand in your communication plan. That's a little bit more concrete than understand how to make a communication plan. You want to have specific examples so that when people leave, they know exactly what they need to do. And at any chance that you get, try to reinforce what you're talking about with some kind of data on how it worked for you. You don't have to have too many statistics, but some rough statistics could be good. You know, when I updated my communication plan and talked more about our brand, we found that once we made that change, that we had a 20% yield in admitted students or enrolled students. So it's that kind of thing where it really adds credibility because you're enhancing it with your experience and your story. Okay? Marcus? And just some do's and don'ts about presentation tools. What you need to remember is that, and right now, Marcus and I are breaking all the rules, okay? All the do's and don'ts, we're breaking them right now, all right? Too much information is on this slide. Less is more when it comes to preparing slides for presentations. You can always follow up with the people who attended by posting a more complete presentation slideshow on the Priestess website after your presentation. And so remember that you're the storyteller, and you don't want the slides to be telling the story as much as you are. And you want people in some of these large rooms to be able to see, indeed, what you have up on the screen. So we're suggesting a 28-point font as a general rule. And Marcus, would you suggest that they use the white for the text?
Yeah, the greater contrast, the better, especially since the rooms are large and you have people in the back, so the harder it is to read, the harder for your audience to grasp it. So.
Right, and especially since we do strongly advise and require that you use the template that was sent to you, and if you do not have that, you can let Marcus know and he'll send that out to you. But you can see the way that the white print shows up on this with the purple and the green. So do keep that in mind. Another really important thing is being very mindful of copyright laws for text and images and any quotations that you use. You are making a presentation at a professional organization, and so you want to make sure that you are using the proper citations as well. Okay, Marcus? Okay, this is the slide that we talked about earlier about an assignment or a takeaway slide where you would add this after a particular part of your presentation before you move on to something else. And so Marcus, do you want to kind of talk about that slide if you don't mind?
Sure. We find that it's very helpful that the more takeaways that you have, the people can have things that are really, they're garnering true value from what you're offering to them. I'm sure many of you can relate. Some of my first conferences, I went to Denver in 2008, and I remember sitting in a number of conference sessions, and it was just kind of a biographical sketch of what a certain office was doing, but there wasn't a whole lot of concrete takeaways of what I could implement. So I think what you should think about is, make it obviously engaging, as Linda talked about, but give opportunities for people to take something that they could go back on Monday after the conference and say, how can I put this into practice quickly and easily? So for us here, obviously we're talking about the presentation, integrating images, that kind of stuff. So hopefully these are things that will help you as takeaways from this particular presentation. But let me take you over, take a look at some of the suggestions that we have as kind of assignments. And I think Linda and I are both kind of educators at heart, so we we like this kind of homework assignment type stuff that I think is helpful for people to take away with them. So here are just some examples, creating communication plans, reviewing your Google Analytics, doing a SWOT analysis of types of services and things that you offer, utilizing financial aid as a recruitment tool. That's something that really is an integral piece of the GEM process that we're talking about now. Talking about retention programs, developing plans to retain students. All these various things are actionable and things that you can take back to your offices. And the more that you can provide kind of actionable pieces of these things, it's great to say go in and create a communication plan, but if you can kind of give some meat to that without giving it all away, I think that's one thing that's nice about the graduate space is that we're all very collaborative in how we do things. So, give people opportunities to kind of wrap their heads around specific, tangible things they can do to make these things happen once they get to their campuses. So on the technical side of things, I want to talk about a little bit. Linda talked about the template itself and kind of the contrast and things. A lot of us try to use images to put them in just to kind of break things up, create something that's kind of engaging. Oftentimes we'll kind of create that for humor. Definitely avoid using images that have small text on them. As I mentioned, some of these rooms are deep, and if you're 40 or 50 people deep in the back of a room, it's very hard to read things that are small. 28-point font is that kind of general rule of thumb. If you can use images, use animations to zoom in on various pieces, and I'll show you in the next couple of slides some examples of that. Use images that are really relevant to your content. A lot of times we'll just think, well, how do I just spice this up a little bit so it's not just text, and we throw any old thing in there. Make sure you're adding things that are value, and again, be mindful of those copyright pieces that Linda talked about. And be aware of things that might not be politically correct. Some things that might be intended as humor for some audiences aren't always interpreted that way. So you certainly don't want to derail your whole presentation because you put up an image that a portion of the audience either didn't understand or didn't appreciate. And if it doesn't fill, if the image that you're using doesn't at least fill a quarter size of the slide, don't use it, especially for those people further away. It's going to be hard to see. And I mentioned some of the attribution issues as well. So this is Fordham's current inquiry form. So we might be chatting about Fordham as a presentation and say this is the kind of stuff that you would ask. But you notice there's certainly text in the middle of that that might be hard to read from far away. It works okay on a screen like this, but to be sitting 40 or 50 feet away from the screen, it's tough to see that. So you might use an animation like this where you're bringing up a portion of that. In this case, we're showcasing the area of interest. Similarly, we might do that. This is a page that we use for lead forms for the University of New Haven. And so I might be showing this, but some of the pieces that I want to show is about a URL, so I'll zoom in on the URL parameters that we have there. And I also might want to show more of the form and talk more about specifics of the information that we're collecting on such a form. So all of these things are very important to the presentation, and I want my audience to be able to grasp that. But if they can't read it or see any of the content, it's really irrelevant. It's not adding a lot of value. So you don't want to have your audience sitting there kind of puzzled on what you're talking about because they can't get into the context of what you're discussing. Finally, I just want to talk about some video and animation. We're not going to show you this video here, but this is a link. We'll send out these slides to you so you have them, but this is a link to a kind of more advanced video on how to make a really good PowerPoint presentation, so you can look at that. There's a lot of resources on YouTube and others that you can look at. Within PowerPoint, many of you are probably familiar that you can either embed images in video or you can link them. Mostly video does this. So if it's not embedded in the file, so for example, if you have a 30 megabyte video file, if you don't embed that in your PowerPoint, and your PowerPoint now becomes, say, 35 or 40 megabytes because of that, then you'd have to link to that. But if you don't have that native video on the flash drive, as I mentioned before, or stored on the computer in some way, then you won't be able to play it. So in most cases now, a lot of what you'll probably be showing is on YouTube or other online resources, so you can link right to it, and because we have internet, you'll be able to get to it. But if you have to embed it at all, make sure you have the original video file saved somewhere, just in case we have some last-minute technical glitches that we need to work out once we get there. So our presentation rooms, I mentioned, the presenters will have wired access at the podiums, and Wi-Fi will be spotty for those that are attending. So the goal is to obviously have folks paying attention to what you're doing in the room. Also keep in mind with video, that you're not using it just to fill up time. You want to make sure it's something that's relevant, and you have the potential of losing people if you start showing a really long video, especially if it has varied content on what might be relevant to what you're doing. So make sure you're using it intentionally and it's adding value. So Linda?
Okay, and just to talk about some more things about some tips for presenters. And one is, if you have, we do sometimes have people who come and have not done presentations before, or they'll say to us, oh, I talk to prospective students, I talk to new admits, I do our orientation program, but now I'm speaking to my colleagues. So it somehow becomes a little bit more intimidating. And so what you need to do is to just kind of concentrate on, body language, tone of voice, eye contact, and really just looking your colleagues in the eyes will help you to relax as well, because you're going to make it feel like more of a conversation. And that's really what we like about our NAGAP educational sessions, is because they are conversations, and it's a way for people to get to know one another and get to know you, and you become a resource for them as well. Sometimes people will, if they're presenting something about something new that they've developed, some innovation that they've brought to their GEM team, they spend too much time talking about the way it used to be. So kind of keep that in mind. All right, this is the way that it was, but this is what we're doing now, and this is how it worked. And so by kind of shortening the way we were part of it and concentrating more on this is what we did, but really hitting your participants with and this is how it worked, and this is what we've now developed as a next step. So keeping in mind that whole feedback cycle that we do when we bring in anything new to our work. We want to evaluate it and be self-reflective about it as well. And we talked earlier about sharing data that you have, and it can be soft data. It doesn't necessarily have to be a spreadsheet with numbers and percentages and stuff like that, but even some anecdotal information, and give people suggestions on how they might do that in their practice as well, with surveys and focus groups and different types of ways to find, how is this working, how are people reacting to it, and is it ultimately affecting my ROI, no matter what it is. And so some of you might be doing presentations where you have multiple presenters. So make sure that somebody is your timekeeper. And I'll talk in a moment about your moderators and recorders. They can be very helpful to you for that. You have a moderator who can be your timekeeper. So if you're going to have a panel, or if you're doing a presentation where there's multiple presenters, let your moderator know. We only want each person to have 8 minutes. So give us a sign when we're at 5 so that we know that we have to finish and then wrap up for each person, because you want to make sure that you get everything covered that you had anticipated in your original plan. Please try to involve your audience members in some way by having them talk to one another, think, pair, share, ask questions also. What would you do? Open-ended types of things. And you can also be checking for understanding as well. So let's use that same example that I've used before about elements of a good communication plan. So what you might say is, okay, right now let's quickly brainstorm and let's get out there at least 5 examples of how you can create a better communication plan based on what you've learned. And people can just do shout-outs. Then your recorder can be jotting these kinds of things down, and that might be something that you can share with your audience later on if you do a follow-up email. You can also keep things very open-ended and say something like, if you were to create a new communication plan, what might be some things that you would need in order to do that? And then get a little list of that. Would you need any fiscal support for it? So it really gets people thinking past the, oh, okay, here are the 10 commandments for a good communication plan, and I'll try that. at some point. But by you asking questions, you really give people more to think about, more to consider, and it really helps them to solidify an action plan. The other thing that we would encourage, and Marcus, maybe I'll let you talk about that, the hashtag NAGAP Learns. Did I lose Marcus?
Sorry, Linda, somebody popped in my office.
Okay, sorry. Would you talk about the hashtag NAGAP Learns?
Absolutely. We started the NAGAP Learns hashtag last year, and the goal was to kind of weave together common, not necessarily common, but takeaways that people are getting from each session. So if you're sitting in a session or attendees are in a session, we'd like for everyone to use this hashtag that if you've got something really great that you say, and I know I see Tony Fraga on the line, so I'll point out Tony. Tony's always got a lot of great stuff to say, so I might hashtag, Tony's talking about variable data printing, and check that out. And I would hashtag NAGAP Learns, and then that would kind of weave together all of the various takeaways that come from the conference. And last year the goal was to take everything that was posted under that hashtag and aggregate it into kind of a takeaway document that has all the takeaways, so that attendees, that obviously we can only go to one at each concurrent session, but you could kind of get a sense of what's happening at all of them if people are using this. So look for the NAGAP Learns buttons around the conference promoting this. Encourage your attendees to post on that hashtag. Consider adding it to your PowerPoint and tell people if you learned something really great here, send it out on that hashtag. And this year we're going to be more proactive in getting that kind of final document together, because I didn't realize those tweets disappear after a period of 7 days or 2 weeks or something. So by the time we were able to aggregate those together, they kind of disappeared. So and we will have a team of NAGAP folks that will be going around to various sessions and tweeting along that NAGAP Learns hashtag as well. So we should have a pretty good kind of volume of takeaways that we can then give to all of you and to all of the attendees of the conference to really add some additional value to your participation in the conference. So we appreciate you kind of getting the word out about that.
Okay. Marcus, and then in the past too, have we put some of these things up on the Twitter board that we have on the conference so that people can see things on the screen?
Yeah, actually, and since we were already talking about Tony, we'll talk about Tony again. Direct Development is sponsoring our Twitter board this year, so we're going to be talking with them about some opportunities for further engagement and all that. But as long as you hashtag NAGAP, and we'll talk to them about probably pulling the NAGAP Learns content as well, that'll all aggregate out on that Twitter board into the main conference areas in the exhibit hall, so that people can kind of see the various things that are going on, even when you're on breaks, and get some kind of takeaways of what's happening.
Okay. So let's go to the next slide. And just a little bit more information about the moderators and the recorder. Each session, each of you will have a moderator and a recorder. It's the recorder's job to take notes and then follow up with a summary that will be printed in our, it will go into our publication called Perspectives Magazine. The summer issue will have all of the education sessions summarized in there, so that becomes a great document later on for people maybe who were not able to go to the conference to be able to read more about some of the different topics and to be able to connect with some of the presenters. So you might get an email from someone next September who read about what you did, and they're asking you questions about it. So it does really help to keep you connected. What I would suggest to you is that you send a copy of your presentation to the moderator and the recorder ahead of time so that they know what to expect. They'll say, oh, wow, this one has 3 presenters, so I have to be very mindful of time. Or even with the recorder, they will have it ahead so that they can, begin to jot down some things that they need to be listening to and for in your presentation so that when they do their write-up. I would also suggest that you ask your recorder to email you the summary before they submit it to our publications committee. That's really important. You want to make sure that the information is correct. Remember the kids game called telephone, where even though we think we're being clear, sometimes it isn't. So you just really want to check that before it goes to print. Next slide. I think we have to go to the next one. And then just some ideas for you that Marcus and I developed on how you can keep the conversation going. When you do some closure at the end of your presentation, you do want to ask, what were the most important things that you learned about? And so that you can hear people tell you what their takeaways are. It's very interesting when you hear what they've interpreted or what they feel was the most important thing. And it might have been something that you said as an aside story that wasn't even part of your presentation, but it was something that you thought of and you kind of ad-libbed it along. But it was something that was meaningful for someone. So it is kind of good to ask those little questions at the end. And then just any final advice that you might have. And encourage your members to, your audience members to create alliances and stay connected in some way. And again, that can be done with that follow-up email if people give you their business cards. You might even arrange to say, all right, if you want to continue the conversation at the next break or at the break tomorrow at 3 o'clock, we're going to have a meetup by the first set of coffee pots, that type of a thing. Or, talk to you at lunch. We're at lunch tomorrow. We are going to all be at the table third from the right near the stage, that kind of a thing. So anything you can do to kind of keep that conversation going is very important, and it increases opportunities for networking as well. All right, the other thing that you can do is to post things about your presentation on the NAGAP social media. Put something out if you're in one of NAGAP's chapters or are faced in LinkedIn, Twitter, anything that you can use to kind of keep it going and connect with not just the people who are your audience members, but maybe you'll entice some other people to gather around your topic in a different way. Okay, Marcus?
All right, so just remember, we work in education. So share theories and data, provide opportunities to really make meaning and value from the information, really engage your audience, and ultimately give that homework for implementation, those assignments, those takeaways, whatever you wish to call them. But make sure that you're driving value as much as possible. And we hope that you all strive to be the session that gets the most NAGAP Learns hashtags of any of the sessions. That you're getting a lot of takeaways that people are really feeling like that was really time well spent in their session. So make sure that when you are at the end of your session that you provide your information and the context information that you feel comfortable providing to people, your photograph, etc. Just so people have a way to reach out to you. Certainly if you're presenting for the first time or newer to presenting, it certainly helps to get your name out there and generate awareness of what you're doing, and certainly for professional development. But give people an opportunity to follow up with questions for you. That seems to be really helpful. So sticking with that theme, this is myself and Linda here, so feel free to contact either one of us. The contact information you see there on the screen. We did put some resources at the end with a couple of links that we'll provide to you in the emailed session. So at this point, we'll ask any questions or answer any questions that you have. We have a few of them here, so Linda, I think most of them are going to be heading your way, so I'll give them to you here.
Okay.
So for those presenters who want to get a list of those that have kind of self-selected that they want to go to their presentation, who should the presenters contact to get that list so that they can connect with them?
Okay, what they would do is email Christy Ross at our management company, and that would be C as in Charlie, R-O-S-S, S as in Sam, that is, at GoAMP. So that's G-O-A-M-P, and it's .com, right, Marcus?
Yep, .com.
.com. So it's cross@goamp.com.
And I'm actually going to put that in the chat window so everybody has that. So if you check your chat window on the right side, you'll see it listed there. Now, there's a question from Stephen Brown. He's asking, can we send you an article to post to the NAGAP listserv? While we really don't have a listserv option, what other ways do you think we can connect articles with folks Linda, or should we be connecting them to the list that we're just asked about?
Okay, you know what, Stephen, would be a good idea to do would be to email your participants ahead of time and send them the article, or what you can do is take those business cards, the business card idea, and email it out later on. You know, it's, you know, with us trying to be as green as possible, you know, we hesitate to do that. One presenter, or some presenters actually have flash drives that are like a, you know, a giveaway item that they use for recruiting, and they've downloaded things onto the flash drives, and they bring those in for the participants. Now, I don't know if that's something that you would want to do, but, you know, I don't know, Marcus, can you think of any other ways that that could be done? Could it be something that is posted somewhere else?
Yeah, I think one opportunity, if you'd like, is you can post it to our LinkedIn group, which is kind of served as our de facto listserv.
Good one.
There's so many people on there. The other option is if you want to send it to me, I can post it out on behalf of the NAGAP handle on either Facebook or Twitter. I mean, Twitter's certainly helpful, and we can reference that. You know, Stephen Brown's presenting on, you know, recruitment or whatever your topic is, and we could link out to the article that you provided, and we can hashtag NAGAP Learns and get that started before the conference. Any of those opportunities we'd be happy to help you with. So the next question we have is from Jessica Brandt. She's asking, will we be notified who the moderator and recorder are for our session ahead of time?
Yes, you will.
Okay, great.
NAGAP will send that out.
Perfect. And the final question that's here is, will a recording enter copy of the slides be made available? Absolutely. We'll send out the PowerPoint deck as well as post this video of the entire webinar as late as it was, and we apologize for that. We'll get that out on our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is just youtube.com/NAGAP video, so I'll put that out in the chat here so you have it. So it's not /NAGAP, so if you're wondering why we don't appear there, it's because it's /NAGAP video on YouTube. So we will post that up this afternoon so you have that recording there available to you. We have some previous recordings as well as webinars and other things there as well, so check out all the various resources that we have for you. So, are there any further questions that we can answer right now? And Linda, I don't know if you have any additional thoughts as we're waiting for any questions that might still be coming in.
No, I think we hit everything. I'm just looking over my notes here, and I think we did. Did anybody else have any questions? I mean, you can always email us. Marcus is the one you email about the technology stuff, though. Not Linda.
And I see, you know, Stephen was just following up on his question. He was interested in how he can garner interest in his session. What I found in the past when I presented Stephen was I would tweet out on my own handle, you know, come to my session. I'm presenting on, you know, best practices in recruitment at 1 o'clock and whatever. And then I'd mention NAGAP. And then if you do that, we can retweet those for you. And also, you know, encourage your friends and other colleagues to do the same, and that can kind of get the word out there. But the nice thing about that is if it gets retweeted or we put it out under the NAGAP hashtag, which you can do as well, that'll come up on the Twitter board in the exhibit hall. So if people are walking by and they see, you know, you're presenting on such and such, or if you want to put like an important tip, or say I'm going to be talking about Google Analytics in my session, come at 2 o'clock, those kinds of things. If you hashtag NAGAP, that'll help spread the word and get the word out there. We'd be happy to help retweet and cross-promote for everybody as well.
The other thing is that, and Marcus, I don't know if you mentioned this earlier, that oftentimes from the ed sessions, we find that we, in the evaluations, that it was a very popular session, and we get and people will say, you know, more NAGAP members need to know about this, or we make that decision. The conference committee will evaluate, and the board looks at the evaluations as well. And so sometimes some presentations have then turned into follow-up webinars or longer articles in our Perspectives magazine, or, you know, perhaps our publications committee is expanding its work now into a more scholarly vein, some sort of white paper for one of our publications as well. So there really are some very good opportunities for you here, and you've taken that first step by wanting to be one of our presenters, and we really appreciate that.
And that's absolutely true. Even if you just have a general interest and you want to present on a webinar format, or you want to expand on your topic, certainly email me, reach out to me if that's something you feel like you'd be interested in doing. We'd be certainly happy to entertain the idea and try to get that onto our schedule, especially if it fits into our kind of themes that we're working on. And our theme going for the 15-16 year, so after this conference, is embracing collaboration in the GEM life cycle. So anything that you would want to contribute toward that theme, we'd certainly love to have you speak in any capacity, whether it be presenting at a conference or contributing a webinar or writing a blog or article about it. We'd love to have anything that you'd like to contribute toward that theme. We'd really appreciate. So I think that's it for questions here. So thank you all for coming. We apologize that we're a little bit late, largely because of my own scheduling, so I apologize for that. And we will post, as I mentioned, the slides. We'll email the slides to you and post the video up to our YouTube channel. And if you have any questions in the meantime, Linda and I are both happy to talk to anybody about any questions you might have. And we look forward to seeing you in New Orleans. It's going to be a great time, and we've got a fantastic offsite, and Tisha and her crew of the conference committee have done a great job of getting this together, and we really look forward to seeing you all.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Have a great afternoon.
Bye-bye.